The publication of the report into the mother and baby homes marks a hugely important point in our country's history and path towards justice for all our citizens. While the women and the children in those homes and institutions have never had any doubt of the abuses and the horrors that took place behind those doors, this report now brings together many of those stories, those lived experiences, and lays them bare for us all to see. The injustices and horrors that were forced on women by the hands of the state and the church, hands that should have been there to help and support and take care of, they are a stark reminder of our dark side. The report was harrowing to read, but for that to have been your actual life experience, for that to have been your introduction to motherhood, to a period that should have been joyful, must have been devastating. I'd like to acknowledge the bravery of the survivors, their children, the survivors groups, and in particular to the tireless work of Catherine Corliss and Philomena Lee, women who never stopped fighting for their own children and the children of others. Your strength shines through the pages of that report. I would also like to remember those that did not survive to see today, those babies and women and families that aren't around to hear this debate and discussion and apology, and I am so sorry. Taoiseach, yesterday in your response to the report, you said the regime described in the report wasn't imposed on us by any foreign power. We did this to ourselves as a society. This is a sentiment and a theme that unfortunately runs through the Commission report itself. The report talks about how institutions provided refuge when families of women did not. A refuge is somewhere of safety. It states that there is no evidence that the women were forced to enter mother and baby homes by the church or state authorities. It says that women were admitted to mother and baby homes and county homes because they themselves failed to secure the support of their family and of the father of their child. I'd like to point out that nearly 12% of the women that went through the doors of those homes were children. They were raped. And to accept or expect that they will be the ones to ensure that they were looked after by their family is not acceptable. At each turn, the report and many of your comments yesterday failed to fully acknowledge that the fundamental responsibility of protection of its citizens lies with the state, and that the culture of a society is moulded and shaped by the most powerful institutions in the state, namely our state and church. A state and church who operated hand in glove to implement a state policy of shame, blame and misogyny that facilitated and oversaw the horrific treatment of women and children in those homes. There can be absolutely no doubt the state's policy was one of shame. The state established these institutions, the state funded these institutions, the state regulated these institutions, and the state outsourced their responsibility to religious organisations. The book stops with the state, and the state needs to own that responsibility. I welcome many of the points that were made here today, but really until this government's first reaction to an instance like this is not to say, well, we were all complicit, then really we have still so much work to do. This report only represents a step in the long journey that these women and their families are taking. The survivors need time to digest and take on board the report and its recommendations, and that may take weeks. Please listen to what the survivors are saying to you, be led by their needs, be led by their voices. They have clearly outlined the next steps towards the restorative justice, and it starts with legislating for full and unfettered access to their records. Proper implementation of EU GDPR rights will be required, and I still maintain that actually there is very little legislative changes need to be put in place in order to allow for GDPR. GDPR applies as standard. Every single person in this country has rights to their own information, and I think that needs to be part of the government's response to this. Don't spend another year looking at what new legislation we need to implement. The legislation is in place, just apply it. The Church needs to release the records on survivors and to cooperate in full. Survivors must be provided with a comprehensive redress and reparation scheme that meets their needs entirely. We must learn from the mistakes in the past and the past redress schemes, many of which cause further trauma to survivors, and the re-traumatisation of survivors needs to stop now. Putting survivors front and centre of this process will be crucial to its success and must provide the security and certainty many survivors need at this time. These are the things that we can do. We can't go back and change what happened to the survivors and their families. We can only give them our most heartfelt apology, only try to repair the trust, to provide them with the access to justice and support them as they continue on their path to healing. And this must be the aim of your government. However, it is within our power to ensure that other vulnerable women and children don't experience such incredible disadvantage, discrimination and state-sponsored human rights abuses in today's Ireland also. Women in this children still suffer because of the policies of this state. 90,000 children live in consistent poverty in Ireland today. 4,000 children are homeless in Ireland today. Over 7,000 people live in direct provision in Ireland today, and that's been described by many as the Magdalen Laundries of contemporary Ireland. Taoiseach, I want to make it absolutely clear that society does not condone the actions of this and previous governments when it comes to the handling of these issues. Society wants you to fix them. It is within our power to make sure that whoever is Taoiseach in 20 years' time, that they don't stand and have to stand where you stood today and apologise for the actions of your government. Taoiseach, use this moment to create better. Use this moment to recognise the state's failings, past and present. Listen to the survivors, to their asks and their needs. Recognise what needs to improve and commit to doing so without delay. Make those changes. Otherwise, your apology today may amount to just another apology on top of an apology on top of an apology. Please, Taoiseach, make it matter. Women deserve better. Children deserve better. And as one survivor, Sheila O'Byrne, put it yesterday, it's time to right the wrongs. Thank you.